All right, so we can talk about this really interesting concept that I've been thinking about for a little while, and it took me about a week to figure out. And that's the concept of the control of the internal conversation that you have within yourself, becoming what you think. When you have your thoughts, sparks, chemical hormone reactions create feelings. Those feelings drive or motivate you towards action, and you outwardly express what it is that you're thinking about. So you become what you think. And if you think in terms of a tree and how underneath the ground, the tree's root system expresses itself outward above ground. And so you see the branches, the tree trunk into bigger branches, into smaller branches, into leaves. And so it's expressing itself outwardly based on its internal conversation. And oftentimes, if I think about relating it to when boots grow roots, for example, oftentimes we find ourselves distracted by a lot of external things that trigger hormonal responses and thought patterns. So we are focusing on things that we cannot control because, let's face it, you cannot control what politicians decide to do. No matter how much you think you have a say in the voting process, they're going to be corrupt one way or the other. We know this by now. So you can't control that, but it changes your thought patterns, and it provokes one into emotional responses. So now we have chemical regulation that's occurring, and we outwardly project what we're thinking about. The conversations within it creates negative conversations within it. We must be very mindful of these conversations that we're having on a daily basis, especially if we're having conversations and we are arguing with somebody or something to yourself. You're basically arguing to yourself, and that is what you will externalize. That's what you become. You become that resistance. You become a resistance. We want non-resistance. We want desire plus non-resistance equals desired results. The tree above ground, as it fully expresses itself, it's going to have resistance along the way. These are environmental resistances, toxicities. Does this sound familiar? Like life, like human life? And so we must be aware of the conversations that we're having with ourselves. What are we thinking about when we wake up in the morning? What are we thinking about when we go to bed? What are we thinking and saying about ourselves on a daily basis? Are you coming from a place of abundance? Are you coming from a place of lacking? If you're coming from a place of lacking and you're thinking about it from a neurological perspective, think about the brain and all the neurological pathways that look like the root system of a tree. That's your internal. And as we come from a place of lacking, so too will your expression. You will continue to lack. And so I find that to be a really interesting concept. So this is why you read about the hidden life of trees and things like that. You see the world differently when you go for your walks, and you just start to develop this better understanding about trees and the things around you, and how they reflect what you're capable of being and what you're capable of doing as a human being. We don't grow leaves, of course, but when we're stressed out, angry, upset, things like that, you might find yourself with irritations, like external irritations, chronic fatigue syndrome. We can name all kinds of things, but this is often coming from the conversations we're having within ourselves, what we're exposing ourselves to, not emotionally regulating ourselves through conversation, through meditations of the virtues of the Stoic, for example. All right, that's a good tool that we can use at any point in the day, really, but especially when you decide to focus, whether it be in the morning, afternoon, evening, however often you want to do it, really. We're able to regulate ourselves and have conversations with ourselves, so that internal conversation becomes externalized. You grow into that healthy tree. You become what you think about.